let's get started then. Good morning. My name is Mayor Michelle Kafusi, and I am the board chair for the Utah Lake Authority. Before we get started, I think we'll just start down here with John and have everyone introduce themselves and who they represent. And just a little on a phone call a minute ago, Mayor Lundberg is on her way and running late. And I'm just like, as you should, because I'm always running a little late. So I love that someone else feels that once in a while too. So let's go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. Good morning. I'm John Mackey. I'm Director of the Division of Water Quality.
Good morning, Ben Steierman. I'm the Deputy Director of the Division of Forestry, Fire and State Lands.
Good morning, Hillary Hungerford, Governor's appointee from UVU.
I'm Curtis Blair, President of the Utah Valley Chamber of Commerce.
And Curtis has something yummy. It looks like in a blender bottle. Like, I don't know. That looks delicious. I love it.
I'm Lene Millett with the Orem City Council.
Julie Fulmer, Vineyard Mayor.
Skylar Beltran, Utah County Commissioner.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody. We're so happy to have you here at our building. We love to host. We got this beautiful facility, and I always tell everyone, let's put it to use. Let's offer it up all the days, every day. We want to get our use out of it, and we want people to feel welcome to come to Provo. So item number 1 is just welcome and a call to order. And number 2 is we're going to ask for any reports from the board members, disclosures, or recusals. Is there any of that we need to discuss today? I'm a big fat no. No, we're okay. Okay, great. Let's then move on to item number 3, which takes us to public comments. And public comments is defined as a time to set aside for citizens to express their views. Each speaker is limited to 2 minutes because of the need for proper public notice. Immediate action cannot be taken in the Utah Lake Board meeting. If action is necessary, the item will be listed on a future agenda. However, the board may elect to discuss it only if the item is an immediate matter of concern. If a person is unable to attend the meeting, public comments can be submitted no later than 7 days before the meeting to anna@utahlake.gov, and the comments will be shared with the board. So at this time, is anyone brave enough to come up and speak for 2 minutes? Do we have anything online? Nope. Okay. Then we'll move on to item number 4. Thank you. Item number 4 is the consent items. 4.1 is approval of the November 2024 Utah Lake Authority Board meeting minutes. I'm looking for a motion on that. All right, we have a motion by, yes.
So this is Sam Brager attending online. I think we have a typo there. That's supposed to be for the January 15th board meeting minutes.
Okay, so January 15th, not November 20th. Okay, thanks for the catch, Sam. All right, so approval of the January 15th, 2024 Utah Lake Authority Board meeting minutes. And okay, Curtis Blair's going to stick with his motion to accept the minutes. Is there a second?
I'll do a second, Julie Fulmer.
All right, any discussion from the board? Seeing none, we'll call it to a vote. All in favor, say aye.
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 And any opposed?
Aye.
Well, who was that, by the way? I should have done a roll call online.
Chris Carnes, Director of Spring City.
Oh, Chris. Hi, Chris.
Good morning.
Good morning. Okay, so I will pause and make sure your vote gets heard as well. So it looks like the motion carries for the minutes to be approved. Let's go on now to item 4.2, approval of the Utah Lake financial reports from October through December. And those were in our packets for those of you hopefully got a minute to take a look at them. And I will be looking for a motion to approve.
Mayor, I'll move to approve. John Mackey.
All right, thank you. We have a motion to approve
I'll second.
and a second by Commissioner Beltran. Any discussion from the board? Seeing none, we'll call it to a vote. All in favor say aye.
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 And any opposed? All right, the motion carries. Let's move on now to item number 5, which is staff and committee reports. Item 5.1 is Executive Director Report from Luke Peterson. So we'll turn the time over to you, Luke.
Okey-dokey. All right, thank you. We are excited to get going today. We've gone through a lot of changes in the past couple of months, just since our last board meeting, and gearing up for a lot more. And so I'm looking forward to going through those with you. I am losing my voice a little bit, so I apologize if it goes in and out here. And I will ask your patience today. We are a tiny bit skeleton crew. We've got Sam online, Addie's at a conference, and so it'll be interesting this morning. It has been already. Do you advance the slides? How do we do this? All right, that'd be awesome. Let's go to the first one. So I want to introduce a couple of new hires. As you all know, last time we talked about some restructuring that we were doing, and we have Shelby Kozak. Shelby is right there, and she'll be presenting later. And then she will be taking over as our development director. This is the grants and fundraising guru for us, who mercifully is taking a lot of that off my plate. So I'm really happy to have her here. And then Kelly Cannon O'Day, who is at the same conference as Sam right now, just started this week. And she will be over communication and events for us, combining those functions. So we're really excited to have both of them. They come with a great background. I know Kelly from the Tribune, where we worked together, and I'll let Shelby do her own introduction later. But just wanted to let you know we did manage to get through both of those hirings in the past couple of months. Next. And then we survived another legislative session, always a happy miracle. Things went quite well, I would say. We had some hits and we had some misses, and I'm happy to talk in more detail about some of those if you'd like. But mainly what I wanted to just mention today is our thanks specifically to these three legislators, Senator Brammer, Senator McKell, and Representative Gracious, who have really been our advocates on the Hill this session and did a terrific job for us. Some of the work they did, I told Brady that we would have to make a sort of Iwo Jima style monument to them at the Nature Center once it's done. So just remember I committed to that. And then next. And then the big report for me, even though we're in the middle of some chaos in DC right now, I was up in DC last week with Nick, our lobbyist, excuse me. And I met with all of the congressional delegation, had great conversations with all of them and their staff. It was great to connect with some former students of mine who work up there, as well as the members of Congress. We're working on multiple things. We are working with Senator Curtis on a request that is not actually for Utah Lake Authority, but rather for the Utah Reclamation Mitigation Conservation Commission, which is a really long name, URMCC. And we've had them present to us before. They are a federal commission that was created back in the 90s as part of the Central Utah Project Completion Act by Senator Hatch and Garn, really spearheaded that. And they've done so much of the work at Utah Lake. The Provo River Delta Project was really, it was a lot of people, but they were the primary partner behind that. And so we're working with Senator Curtis for what's called a programmatic request. This is a little different from an earmark, and hoping to secure an extra $5 million for URMCC this year that we can use on invasive species. So the work we're doing on carp, the work we're doing on Phragmites, that would all go to that. And we think this is really important. As you know, with the June sucker being downlisted from endangered to threatened, very happy about that move. But a lot of federal money disappears with that move. And so we're hoping that this request, if we can secure this, will help us to sort of get over that last hump in terms of dealing with carp, getting the carp population down to where we want it, and Phragmites and revegetation. And then with Congressman Owens, we have a request for $4.5 million for recreation enhancements. You'll recall that we made this request with them last year. It was very, very close. We just barely got cut off from having it funded. And Congressman Owens' office told me that this will be their top priority this year. So we are really grateful for their support and the opportunity to work with them. I've spoken with Congressman Malloy's office, Congresswoman Malloy's office, and had a good conversation with them as well, Senator Lee's office and Representative Kennedy's. And there are all other things we'll be working on with them, but these are the two big requests we're working on for this year. And we're hoping that previous requests survive the current budget process. They're in jeopardy right now, but we'll see how that plays out. And however it plays out, we'll keep at it and get these projects done. I think that's it for me. Is that right? Okay. Thank you. Oh, questions?
Does anyone have questions for Luke?
Yeah, Luke, what can we do to support you in these federal requests?
Thank you. That's a great question. You know, we went there and it's just pure bedlam on Capitol Hill right now, right? Like you go and everybody's just sweating and running around. And when we spoke with Senator Curtis's team, and they're in temporary offices.
They're in the
because
basement.
Yeah, they're in the basement. But we met with them. They go, "This is great. We're excited for it. We just can't think about it right now, you know, because they're trying to survive the current. We're still trying to get the current year passed. You know, we're in March, but we're still trying to get the current year's budget passed. And so it will sort of materialize as we go. And I guess what I'm trying to say is I will let you know as we get closer. But we're letting things settle down for them a little bit so that we can then dig into the weeds of these proposals. Thank you for the question. Anything else? Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Luke. We appreciate the update. And we appreciate the hustle back there. I've been back there twice as well, trying to make sure our funding promised from last year lands, and then trying to beat the pavement for any funding that's out there for this coming year. So it is ongoing. And the description you gave of hustling and sweaty is exactly what it is back there. Everyone's moving fast. Okay, let's go ahead then and move on to our next report, which is operations and recreation. And we'll turn the time to Sam.
Thank you, ma'am. And then I'll also hit on 5.3 afterwards on the audit report too. Anna, if you'd be kind enough to advance the slide for me. First, wanted to hit on some planning efforts that we're working on currently. Some of these are in process and others are soon to be in process. The Recreation Access Plan, Chris Wiltsey with Bike Utah is here to hit on that today, so I won't hit on it too far, but I just wanted to state that I'm pleased with the progress we're making and appreciate the support of all the partners. We have a work group that's helping inform Bike Utah's plan and my efforts of over 30 organizations being represented on that. And I think that's been going really well. One that's coming up in the near future that we're hoping to pursue at the beginning of this coming fiscal year is the lake-wide signage plan. A reminder, this is an effort I've mentioned in the past to try and create a comprehensive and collaborative effort for signage at the lake. And this includes wayfinding, interpretive and informational signage. So everything from access access point name signs to trail wayfinding to interpretive information about the wetlands and the wildlife and the recreation amenities in the area and the history of the lake. So we hope to kick that off and do that over the next fiscal year, with the goal of being prepared for next spring for grant season to then seek funding to go and install these signage. So we'll be working with all of the shoreline cities and various other partners on this to make sure there's agreement on what these, the coloring, the fonts, the size, and the location of these signs so that we can provide a better experience for visitors to the lake. Another planning effort that we hope to kick off soon. This one we are submitting a grant for currently to help fund it, but working with Steve Wolf, the new park manager over at Utah Lake State Park in Provo, to create a master plan for their park. He's very excited to have it be a collaborative experience and wants to really create a good vision for maintaining and improving the state park at the lake. And so we're excited to hopefully kick that off sometime near the start of the fiscal year here as well. We'll find out right before the start of the fiscal year if we get that funding for a technical assistance funding from the Division of Outdoor Recreation. Something else in planning we've been working on is trails coordination. I recently met with most of the state agencies and then the county and MAG and others to discuss big picture, looking at the trail plan for the entire lake and trying to determine the status of several of the segments that have already been funded and where they're at, as well as determine where the next priority should be. Shelby will probably hit on this as well, but she just submitted one of her first grants for us, which is the National Park Service Rivers, Trails, and Conservation Assistance application, where instead of a grant of funds, it's a grant of in kind of one of their planner services to help us. And so we hope to utilize that effort to analyze from Provo Bay down to Lincoln Beach and determine at the same time with the county's general plan, which is going to be going under revision, and having a transportation plan, if I understand correctly, to work with them to update the alignment of the Utah Lake Shoreline Trail so that that can be adjusted up to current times and needs as it is. So that's a little bit on planning. Next, if you would, Anna. As far as projects go, excuse me. Speaking of the state park, before Shelby came on, I submitted for 2 different grants in the fall of last year. One called the Clean Vessel Act, which is a federally funded act for specifically mostly sewer or septic marine pumps at water bodies to help protect them from being damaged or harmed. Utah Lake only has one. It's at the state park and it's 25 years old. It's not functioning currently. So we're hopeful to receive that grant and do that work this year. We also submitted a boating access grant, which is another federally funded grant that the state oversees to do repairs. I actually just heard, and I should say that this would be doing some asphalt repairs, jetty repairs. There's also a need for some potential dock expansions to be able to help the marina continue to function well. I just found out yesterday that at least at the state level, our project was approved. It did have a slight reduction. They pulled off some rental slips that we wanted to include in that ask. But they are obviously awaiting federal approval, just like the Clean Vessel Act grant. I'll reference the Bedlam Luke referenced a few minutes ago. We'll find out soon, hopefully. Some other projects that are in the works. We're working with Vineyard City, working with Brian Vaudry, their recreation director, for some trail amenities. This would be some benches and a bike repair station or 2, and then also we want to do some custom bike racks. So I didn't put a picture on here, but the Provo River Delta project had somebody local do a June sucker shaped bike rack, which was quite popular. So we're looking to try and see if we can actually develop a series of custom bike racks at the lake that could go in the trails of the various segments with the cities. So we hope to put in a few of those that are either June sucker shaped or maybe one of the birds like a pelican or a great blue heron. We think that'll be a really fun project. We're also submitting for some grant funding on this too. The photo on this slide is the life jacket station at Vineyard Beach. Some of you may have heard about this. Is probably about a month ago now. The ice stacks were pushed quite severely up onto Vineyard Beach with a significant wind event that came through. In the background is one of the county's pavilions. So I think that shows you the ice stack height, I think exceeds 12 or 15 feet. And it completely ripped our life jacket station out of the ground. and damaged that railing as well. So Vineyard staff and the county have been coordinating repairs to the pavilions and the railing. We are in the process of hiring a handyman to install an entirely new station at Vineyard Beach. So I've already initiated that process. We expect it should be done within the next 30 to 45 days because we need to get some new signs printed up. And so we're going to do an overhaul of the design on them anyway. So that's coming the next few days. I also am working with a team of interns from BYU from their on-campus internship program, and we're working on 4 of the tasks in the implementation plan from our Utah Lake management plan. And that is basically documenting what our programs do. And those 4 programs that it talks about that we're documenting are the ecosystems program, the recreation program, communities program, and the public outreach and marketing program. So basically, with how fast we had to start work up as the Utah Lake Authority, we've already been doing the work. This is just a project to document what the kinds of work are that we do so that it's down on paper for continuity across staffing as it changes, and also for communicating with partners in the public on what we do for our work. Last but not least on projects, this is one I believe I've mentioned with the chairs. I don't know if I brought it up with the board yet, but we're working on trying to create an online Utah Lake library. So we started work first. The first deliverable is we're working with an intern in partnership with the UVU Herbert Institute to scan all of the paper library that we have in our offices. The first Utah Lake Commission Director, Reed Price, compiled, I think I have 15 storage totes of proposals and articles and master plans and city general plans and other things that he pulled together from the past. And so we have an intern going through, reviewing them for relevancy, and then scanning those that he can't find somewhere online already. The second deliverable we hope to pursue on this will be then moving this to an online interactive resource and pulling from other outside sources. So currently we're not reaching out to other partners at the moment because as you'll hear from Jacobs a little bit later today, the Utah Lake and Great Salt Lake study that Forestry, Fire and State Lands is pursuing also involves some data collection of existing studies and research, and we really don't want to cause confusion on those contacts. So for the moment, the intern is scanning. We're also beginning conversations with the UVU Fulton Library on determining how we can host this library with them instead of with us, as we don't have any experience with that. But the end goal being an online resource that lake managers, researchers, the general public can access and search with key terms to try and find good information about the history of the lake, the research and science that's going on, as well as policy to do with the lake. So I'm excited to see that happen. It'll be an ongoing project for the next, or probably this full calendar year, be my expectation at least. But the scanning is hopefully will be finished in the next few months. Next, please. One thing I wanted to hit on briefly is just an update for the board on the Wakaraway mediation. If you recall, we hired Susan Podziba last year to help facilitate mediation between the government agencies and the landowners within the Wakaraway proposed project footprint in order to try and resolve some of the dispute that was going on. She's been well recognized and appreciated from all parties involved. She's done wonderful work, and we extended her contract recently. It was supposed to end in December, but we felt we wanted a little additional time in order to try and bring to fruition some of that work. So she'll be working with us until the end of June, the end of this fiscal year. Recently, or I should say, in the past, she did an assessment, interviewed over 30 individuals to try and gather all the various insights and opinions and concerns and interests in the project. And since then has been working to coordinate with those landowners and the government agencies to try and initiate the conversations. So most recently, we've been working as government partners to determine the potential trail alignment options based on which landowners are most interested or feasibility of the alignments. We've also worked to gather information on the land boundaries. The main dispute is that there's, I think it's 6 landowners that have claims to land that the Bureau of Reclamation also lays claim to. And so we've been trying to gather information on that, and then also coordinating the roles and responsibilities of Wakaraway so that there's an understanding after the mediation work is done on which agency is pursuing what responsibility within the project. Discussions with the landowners are progressing. We have several that are in process of drafting terms of agreements. And we have hope that we can finalize the trail alignment by April 30th and have mediation complete by June 30th with as many of those agreements as possible. I wanted to give a thanks to Ben Steierman and with Forestry, Fire and State Lands, and Emma Whitaker, who is their assigned Assistant Attorney General, for their responsiveness and their help in working with Susan and I to get these agreements moving forward. So we're excited to see that progress. I think, Ann, I might have one more. Okay, so now it's the audit. Before I get to the audit, was there any other questions on operations and recreation from the board?
We're
Mayor.
just super excited about the library. Don't forget the book about the ghosts down at Utah Lake. That's such a fun little ghost story book to read.
Oh, that'd be great. We'd love to have all kinds of resources in there.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Just, Sam, excuse me, one quick question on the library.
Yeah.
First of all, I think that's a phenomenal resource, but I have a question on ownership, if that's the right way to say it. So where these are both Utah Lake Authority and others, who has ownership or liability for correctness of any of those documents? I guess I'm just wondering, we are maintaining that or facilitating that, but what's our ownership right?
So that's not quite yet determined. That's where I think we're hoping to have our first meeting with the Fulton Library. I think it's supposed to be next week. I'm waiting for the intern to get back with me on scheduling that. But that is a discussion point we'll have to evaluate. I do think that there's also going to be room for some acknowledgement that there is a constant need for maintenance. Like, for instance, we actually even plan to include, or my hope would be to include, a feature where someone can say, hey, I couldn't find a topic research or a document on this topic. Can you look for it? Or, hey, I actually have a record that you guys don't have in that. Can it be added, please? You know, here it is, I'll upload it or something. So we're still in the middle of finalizing those conversations. But I agree, it is something that we are going to need to address.
Okay, appreciate that. Thank you.
Any other questions before I move to the audit?
I just would like to welcome Vice Chair Mayor Carolyn Lumberg. So go on to the exciting audit.
All right. Oh, I love the word exciting for it, Mayor. I can't agree more with the enthusiasm. So this is our standard annual audit with the state auditor's office. The good news is this year, unlike last year, we were a little bit late getting it done because there was a miscommunication between when Eric left and I took it on as the interim director. So the good news is we finished on time. Our deadline is December 31st of the current calendar year to finish up for the previous fiscal year. There were 3 issues noted in this report. It was shared with me, I believe, right after Christmas, and I immediately shared it with our audit committee, which is made up of Curtis Blair, Ben Steierman, and I'm Cameron Dalton. There we go. Forgot for a second there. The 3 issues I have highlighted on the screen, and also what actions we took on those. All minor items in my opinion, and I'll fully own that most of them were due to inexperience on my part. The first one, quite simply, was that we reported the wrong number as the end of year balance. And unfortunately, with the audit, once you start, you can't, change that. So my solution and action item on that is, this is why we brought on Paramount. This is the last audit where they were not as involved. They printed some reports for me at my request, but that was about it. We brought them on mid fiscal year, so they'll be much more involved in helping to avoid those kinds of issues as we progress in our audits. But just a minor bookkeeping error on that. On 2F that's listed, this one, in no way am I meaning to blame Eric. It's just from a time frame where I was not in charge of the finances. We unfortunately recorded a fiscal year transaction from the wrong fiscal year. We operate under accrual accounting method, so some transactions that were for work that occurred in fiscal year 23 got paid during the dates of fiscal year 24 and got logged as fiscal year 24 on accident. So we have that all set up. This was done by Excel spreadsheet in the past. That's why I think in part that error occurred, but we're now set up with Paramount, with QuickBooks, and very clear communication with their staff on our bookkeeping, so that we are abiding by that accrual method, and that will not occur. The third item was item 4 on the report, which was shared with the board. This one is just, I completely slipped my mind, which is filing our compensation data. I had initiated contact when the deadline approached, asking for insights from the state auditor's office, and then I missed the email response. So once that was once I was notified during the audit in December, I immediately submitted those, I believe, within the week. And so those have been filed, and the documentation and process has been shared with Paramount because that's one of their roles now from our current fiscal year 25 forward. They're also in charge of all of our monthly, quarterly, and annually reporting. So I believe we've taken good actions on it. The audit committee, any of you are welcome to chime in, but in the email chain, supported the actions we've taken. So I think we did better this year than our last audit. There were fewer issues, and we were on time. And I have full confidence that we can work hand in hand with Paramount and the state auditor to ensure, hopefully, that my goal will be next year that we don't have any issues. So that's on the record, I guess, now too. If Luke's wanting to put things on the record in his comments, I will too for one. But any questions from the board on the audit report?
This is why we really seriously do love audits in government, because they catch us and help us do better so that we don't make the same mistake twice. So only 3 this year. So I feel like we're getting a better grasp on things. Does anyone have any comments concerning these 3 issues?
Madam Chair.
Yes.
So just Sam, thank you again. As a member of the audit committee, I can say that you were completely transparent in working with us, explaining the issues, what their impacts were, and the proposed resolution. From that committee, we have no concerns. We think there's a great path moving forward, and we appreciate your work on this, Sam, recognizing that it is difficult to transition from one director to the next and picking up some of those things that were just taken care of previously. So thank you for putting a plan of action together, and I think we're on a good path moving forward.
We appreciate you folks who sat on the audit committee. Thank you for doing that, because that's just another, like my husband says, stamp on my forehead, we'll work for free meeting.
Thank you, Chair.
Do we need to make motions on those, Sam, to accept them or
Nope,
no?
that's just notifying the board, and we do so in a public meeting so the public's aware of the audit results.
Okay. Thank you so much, Sam. We appreciate your work on this. Let's move on then to the next item, which is events and engagement by Heather McEwen. Is Heather here or is she also at the convention?
I'm online. So
okay.
Yeah.
Hi,
Thank you.
welcome.
Hi. Okay, Anna, can you go forward? Okay, perfect. So I guess first update is the ULA photo book. I know we've talked about it for a couple times now. There were a couple of issues when it came to like proofs. There were a couple of blurry pictures, and then they came back to me yesterday saying when they were doing like the big production of like over 100, they were having some like borders like getting cut off and stuff like that. And so Anna had to go back in and kind of redo that. But now all the problems are fixed, and so now we should be good to go, and those books will come in soon. So I apologize for not having them today at the meeting. However, we did bring the latest proof of the photo book. So if you guys would like to take a look at that, I don't know if it's like with Anna or Shelby. You guys are welcome to look through
We're
it.
passing it around.
Okay, perfect. And so, like I said previously, you're welcome to email me or fill out that form if you like see a picture you like in the photo book and want like a big canvas of it. Just let me know. And then our first carp hunt happened in February. We had about 98 people the first day and 63 people the second day on Sunday, which I think is pretty good considering the cold weather, the ice, not being able to have like a lot of launch space, due to that. So we're looking forward to having an even bigger crowd in the next coming months, especially since the spring is the best time to catch that carp. Then also the Adopt a Shoreline program is now up and running again. So we have dedicated hunters out there cleaning up our access points to make Utah Lake beautiful. A couple of dedicated hunters said that there are tires like in our wetlands, and so they're going above and beyond and helping like retrieve those tires and disposing of them properly. So we're super grateful for their efforts. When it comes to upcoming events, obviously our next carp hunt will be at Linden Marina on March 29th and 30th. If you guys want to come stop by, see how it's run, we'd love to see you there. And then I know this next event, it's kind of far out there, but I know our next board meeting isn't until May, so I didn't want to just throw it on you like the week of. So I just wanted to let you know that it is May 17th. And we've decided to host it at Provo River Delta Project so that the community is still becoming aware that this is here, this great amenity you should enjoy, and like just really appreciate the hard work that's been put into making the project come to life. And each year at the Paddle with Care event, we honor somebody that's helped with like safety at the lake or just like have has helped Utah Lake in general. This year we've decided to honor Josh Holt that has recently passed, and we are hoping that his wife will come to accept that honor in his behalf. So we're grateful for him. Also, what's not on here is the Utah Lake Festival that will also be in May this year, the last weekend in May. Usually it's the first week in June, but this will be the last weekend in May due to a couple of fun changes that we'll be doing. So, and then lastly, I don't know if you guys can see it, but Anna has so beautifully created our bird shirts. We had our floral design, and now we have our bird shirt that kind of represents the birds that come to Utah Lake and makes it home. And so you guys are welcome to look at that, and we hope to print more of those so that the public can enjoy. Is there any questions?
Yes, for the Paddle with Care event, does the general public need to bring their own kayak or canoe, or any provided for the general public?
It's kind of up to you. I think most people do bring their own paddles. But when you register, there'll be like a question that's like, do you need like a rental? And then it will give you information on who you can contact. That's really good at like at setting you up with a rental and also even bringing it to the event for you. So there's both options.
Any other questions? All right, thank you so much for the update, all the fun things going on out there. Let's go
you.
ahead. Thanks, Heather. Let's go ahead and move on to item 5.5, development and funding. And Shelby will take this one. And welcome, Shelby. She is new. Is this your first presentation?
Yeah, this is my first presentation. I started about 5 weeks ago, so just like recently after the last board meeting.
Well, tell us a little bit about yourself. Where are
Yeah.
you from? All the things. What landed you here?
Yeah, of course. I will also try to be cognizant of the other presenters as well. I know that this is a very packed meeting. But my name is Shelby Kozak. I am an Orem native, so I grew up right between Utah Valley University and the junior high, so around that area. I, for about the past 5 years, have been living and also working in around the DC area. I pursued a master's degree at George Washington University. And while out there, I was able to work with a lot of nonprofits, a lot of international development organizations, a lot of really great kind of like federal level organizations, World Wildlife Foundation, also a lot of federal agencies. So Department of State, Department of Defense, the EPA, and USAID. And while I super loved my time out there, I worked with, I said various organizations, did consulting work. I always knew that I wanted to come back home. I wanted to come back here close to family. I wanted to have my own family out here. So I was very, very happy to return recently and to be able to find my way to the Utah Lake Authority. So I have a lot of experience in fundraising, in grant management, in grant application, a lot at the federal level with a lot of private donors. And so that's kind of like the opportunities I was looking for here. So I was really, really excited to find this opportunity with ULA.
We're glad that you're here with us.
Yeah, super happy to be back home. I will say I've been living here for a couple of years, but still up until about like, I started this job, I was still at like a DC consulting firm. So I am going to testify to what Mayor Kafusi and Luke said earlier. It is very wild out in DC right now. And I'm very happy to be local again. So
Great.
can we go ahead and click one more time, Anna? So I just want to go over very quickly what is development. I think that some people hear development if they don't really have like, it's a word oftentimes used like in the nonprofit sector. I think sometimes people think of development and like development at the lake, development of programs. Development funding is really being able to create strategic pipelines for being able to get more funding. So we have appropriations that come from the state legislature or from the federal legislature, but this is developing more avenues and more partnerships to have more sustainable funding sources, more diversified funding sources. That includes stewarding major gifts, finding and managing grants, and then also developing partnerships that can be a fruitful, sustainable, long-term partnerships for future products that we have. And if you want to click one more time. And then my current focus is, we kind of divide them out into two: gifts, which is basically anything that we get from either, whether it be from a one-off, appropriation or donation from like the governor's office or from a private organization or from an individual citizen. We kind of count those as gifts. And then also we have grants, focusing a lot on state grants right now, just because there is a lot of uncertainty about what is going to happen with federal funding. We really want to be strategic about how we're using our time. It would be really disappointing to be able to spend all this time on federal grants, and it turns out they're just not going to select someone, which is happening with a lot of grant programs right now. But that's kind of the kind of a high level thing, is gifts and then also grants. With gifts, I'm focusing right now on really trying to develop connections with the community for nature center partners, potential sponsorships and donations, really trying to focus on that over the next year especially. And we're getting a lot of initial interest from the public about wanting this to happen, which is really, really, really exciting. And then also with grants, it is grant season right now, especially for the recreation project. So just kind of every week we're submitting another one to the Division of Outdoor Recreation or with DNR and et cetera. I think they kind of want to get a lot of their grants put out and like taken care of before like you have like this season for a lot of like that outdoor stuff. I will pause there for questions.
Any questions?
Yeah, on the nature center, do you vision like when you go to the aquarium and the zoo, there's like a wall of $10,000 donors, $5,000 donors? Is that kind of the vision there?
Well,
are we so far away from fully funding that will come later? What is the thought process there?
yeah. So right now, what I'm focusing on is, yes, we would love to have as many, like, we'll call those like mid-range donors as possible. And there are a lot of like smaller local businesses that I'm talking about that would be around like maybe the 5 to 10K range, whatever. We're also hoping to get some of the bigger foundations. There's also a lot of like in Silicon Slopes and companies, like there are these bigger companies that would want to be able to give bigger amounts. Potentially, we're also trying to work with them. So we are currently, Luke and I, working on a kind of like a strategic pipeline of who and how we are working to reach out to people, but would imagine it very much like at some way we'll be able to recognize the families or the businesses that gave we'll kind of call that like a mid-sized gift. And then of course there are other ways to recognize if there are companies, organizations that are like, I want to give like a large amount or like a much bigger gift as well. So yes, hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, thank you.
Interestingly, Mayor Lundberg of Linden, so this is our site where the nature
Yes,
center is going.
yes.
We were just chatting this week that maybe some elements of the conservation park could have naming rights, like the pond
Yes,
or the
uh-huh.
bird watching tower.
Or like the different labs, we think like if there's
Yes.
someone, and that's one of the things that we're kind of like siloing out how we're interacting with people, because there are going to be different investments of like, I want to focus on the research aspect, or there are different companies that want to focus on the education and outreach aspect. And so the namings of the various labs or of the different like exhibits that we have, those are something that we're kind of like, we don't have like a matrix for you yet. We will eventually, as a way to be like, share with all your friends. But that is what we want, is like be able to have naming rights, some sort of like recognition wall, some sort of way for people to like in the community feel like that we're a part of this. Because yes, we need money, of course, like everyone does, but like we also want the community to feel like that this is their nature center. This is a part of their community and they got to help build that. And I think that having some sort of recognition of all of the businesses, families, and organizations that were able to participate, I think it'll feel really rewarding and nice. And again, like just very collective. And we want that at this place.
And remind me where we're at. The total price tag is like 20 million. We've acquired 5 or 6. Is that about where we're at?
So overall, it's going to be closer to about around 9 million right now. Now there are some things that we're finalizing out, and that covers everything with some like in-kind donations. That includes the land that Linden is going to be donating for this site, along with the appropriations that we are waiting to hear about by the end of Friday that Luke touched on earlier. So we have a good amount that we are starting with. We are hoping to get 1 million in donations over this next year to kind of like, you know, really get public engagement, really get like the public like investment in this as well. And then whatever else that we need to cover it, we'll be able to go to the legislative session next year for. Okay, are there any other questions at this time? Okay, that is all from me. Thank you.
Thank you. So the motto in Provo City is we grant, 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 ask, 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 and over ask, and turn over every rock to find every dollar that's out there. So it sounds like you're on that train as well. So, and my deputy mayor is just going to laugh because I say it all the time. If there is a dollar out there in Washington, D.C. that's up for grabs, it might as well land in Provo instead of somewhere in Arkansas or somewhere else, and we're going to go grab it. So thanks for your hard work. I know how hard grant writing is and just beating the pavement to get those dollars to come back to the communities. Let's go ahead now and move on to item number 6, which is guest presentations. Oh, this is fun. So we have our Utah Lake Authority Recreation Access Plan update from Chris Wiltsey, and I'm just going to brag a little bit about Chris because he's a Provo citizen. He's an avid bike rider. He has a darling wife and family, and we just feel really lucky to have him in Provo. And his bike to work is coming up, and I always see his wife and kids, and it's just really fun. So welcome, Chris.
Thank you. Just waiting for her to pull it up. We actually had a baby.
Another
year ago.
baby.
Yeah. So 3 kids now.
This is awesome. Are they all going to fit on the bike?
Yeah.
That's my question.
Cranking them out. We had 4 kids on the bike yesterday.
Oh, it'll work then.
I love those cargo bikes. Is that what you have? It's one of
Yeah.
those electric cargo. Those are
Yeah.
awesome.
We could just do it like this. It's fine. Yeah. Okay. So we've contracted with
To cut you
ULA.
off, Chris.
Okay.
Anna online is still seeing the board meeting slides, not what you have on the screen in the room. Okay, you're good. Thank you.
Great. So we've contracted with the Utah Lake Authority to do a recreation access plan. I'll talk a little bit about what that means. We've put together a team. We've been at this since like January. Next slide. Okay, this team is made up of Bike Utah, my organization, MHTN Architects. So they do planning, landscape design, architecture. Utah Open Lands, they're helping us with the conservation analysis and connecting us with some of those different landowners. And finally, Dr. Greg Carling from BYU, and he's looking at some of the environmental factors. He's a well-known geologist. So the different aspects of this assessment are, initially, we went around to every single access point on the lake. Sorry, that's kind of small, but we were able to identify 35 different access points. And we visited each of them, and we took inventory of what existed, and also took notes on what we think is missing and issues that we found at each access point. Then we did or you can stay on that previous one, sorry. Then we continued to look at how we could improve each of those sites. And we worked with another consultant named Zoe, who did some interviews with different stakeholders and gave us that data. So we've been going back and forth. And now we are writing that access plan, so that a draft of that should be done by the end of the month. And we're also working at the very bottom on conservation workshops. So those are with landowners. We're going to meet it. Basically, we've broken the lake up into 4 quadrants, and we're going to meet with landowners in each one of those areas and have discussions about what their sort of aspirations are for the lake and how we can collaborate with them. And so Utah Open Lands has been a really good partner in that effort. Next slide. So like I said, we were able to identify 35 access points. Next slide. Here is a map of all of the different access points. And I think we were even able to surprise ULA staff with some of the access points. We were able to identify, this doesn't include private access points. This is all public access points. And we've worked closely with stakeholders from around the region to identify these and to evaluate them. Next. We have divided up the access points into multiple types. Those are marinas, community parks, beaches, boat launches, and sportsman access and trailheads. So a marina is, as you would expect, a community park is just a park that's attached to the lake. A beach is where that's sort of the primary function of the area. Boat launch would be something like Mill Race. It's smaller. You can launch a canoe from there. Sportsman access is sort of like undeveloped. You might go hunt, fish there. And trailhead is just a trailhead. Next. Thank you. And as part of this effort, and I'm sure Sam and Luke will get this presentation to you, so I just included in the presentation a link so you can click on this story map. And this gives an overview of all of the work that we've done, so you can kind of follow what we're doing and look at our analysis, and you can look at every single access point and see a description with our recommendations and other issues that we found with each access point. So next slide. This is what it looks like. We actually have a new button for conservation that has some information and analysis around conservation. But you can click on either of these buttons. Next slide. And then it also has these different access point types. You can click on them and it will list the different access points related to each type. Next slide. And then there's also a map that you can click on if you want to go to different access points and see what that access point is all about. Finally, next one. And this is an example of what it looks like with the different point types. Next slide. So I referred to those landowner workshops. We'll be working with landowners, and we're working closely with ULA to invite as many landowners as possible to those workshops. And so we're going to facilitate conversations with them and give them resources. So one of the big sort of hopes or outcomes from that is that we'll be able to work with Utah Open Lands to promote conservation with the landowners. So the benefit for the landowners is they can have conversations with Utah Open Lands and ULA and decide if conservation makes sense for them. It's their choice. They get to donate the parcel if they want to. And and then it gets dedicated to some sort of like public good. So maybe they want it to be open for hunting in perpetuity. So we can create the framework for that to happen. Likewise, we're working with one of our partners. Early on, I talked about MHTN. MHTN is an architecture firm, and they have a lot of experience creating parks and other open spaces. So they're looking at 5 different access points to really dig into and give good guidance, a kind of a springboard for further planning into the future. Questions? Sorry, that was a lot in a little time.
Any questions?
Yes, Chris, it's nice to meet you and put a face to a name. Do you not have a symposium or some sort of event coming up countywide?
We do have the bike summit that'll actually be at UVU. That's going to be in August. We're kind of finalizing the date, but yeah.
Fabulous. Well, as a Chamber of Commerce, we want to support that event. And let's make sure. So I knew that it was sometime late summer. So it's looking like August. That's great.
Yeah.
I'll be in touch, and I've got your business card.
Awesome.
But thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Chris, this is Sam online. Just wanted to chime in. That story map link, that's the same one that we're using with our work group, right? Because the board could then also actually even provide comments. I know that I've talked with board members in the past about some of these access points, and if they'd like to see particular changes or suggestions made, they can do that on that story map. Is that correct?
Yes, correct.
Awesome. Well, consider that board your invitation from me and Chris to when you view that link when we send that out, that you're welcome to, if there's a particular access point in your jurisdiction or otherwise that you'd like to see some kind of change, feel free to add that input there. Our work group will also be doing the same thing.
And also, if you feel like maybe there's something missing around where you live, this is a great opportunity to put it in there, or like, don't be shy. All your big dreams, put it in there. Thanks.
Thank you, Chris. We're excited to go through that link and see everything you've worked so hard on. It's great. All right, let's move on. Item number 7, there is no closed session today. So we will move on to, unless someone has a closed session that I'm not aware of. Nope. Okay, great. Let's just move on then to our action items. Action item 8.1 is the review and approve a chair recommendation for Utah Lake Authority Executive Director compensation. So I'll take this one. It was in your board packet. And I just want to state by saying, and Carolyn can chime in as well, it has been a real pleasure being the board chair and working with this new leadership, and so fascinating because this new organization and the way it works is completely different than where we were before. And yet the transition has been fairly smooth, and in fact, extremely smooth. Luke has just been amazing. His mind is just full of knowledge from every level of government, which I really appreciate. He is well known back in Washington, D.C., and well liked and well received, which serves us really well, because then he is the one able to have these relationships and fundraise and get us grants, etc. I believe we're almost to, since we've hired Luke, we're almost to $1 million in grants he's brought in. That's not his salary we're asking for today, by the way. But he is really an amazing bridge builder. I have enjoyed my time with him. He's open for discussion. If he puts something on the table and I say, oh, I don't know if your board's gonna like this, he's great. We'll shift, we'll change. I've just really enjoyed my time with him. He's been a huge asset to this, and he has a real vision for where this is going to go and what it potentially looks like. And we love big thinkers because the lake is such a gem. It needs the attention, it needs the funding, it needs the big vision. Each of us mayors have this interest that hones in on our cities and our property, and yet overall we all care about this lake. And I love his attitude and the way he's taken on the decision of how to move forward with the lake. So I just can't say enough good about him. I was able to do his evaluation, and I think it was in the packet as well. All my comments were attached. If you have any questions for me or for Luke, I'll also turn some time to Carolyn so that she's been an amazing vice chair, and we do a pre-meeting, which I love a good pre-meeting. And we go over the agendas and we talk about issues and things, and it has served us really well in leading this board. So Carolyn, do you want to add anything?
I would second everything that Mayor Kafusi said. Well said. In addition, what I've been able to work with Luke on and really have admired is there's always a lot behind the scenes with many, many issues. I see nods from our previous past chair as well. There's a lot of advocacy that has to happen. And Luke is a very strategic thinker. Especially this past legislative session, there were some things he didn't really, at the beginning of the meeting, he just lightly dusted and touched on that there were some things that could have put ULA in trouble and with some bills and things like that. And so going with him up to the Capitol and meeting with some of those individuals who we just needed to have some good, open, transparent discussions and conversations and share all the good work that is happening with the community. It's not just this board, it's every community, every committee that touches us, all the folks that come to these meetings that are doing their part with the lake, and how the collaboration really is wonderful and seamless. This is a great organization to be a part of and to help spearhead the interests of what is our lake together collectively. So appreciate what he does to recognize advocacy well in advance and then pull together those different stakeholders and decision makers to preserve and help move things forward. So.
Okay, so any comment on, there's a resolution that we'll have to adopt? Any comments on any of it? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Mayor Kafusi, I'll make the motion. I would just also want to comment and say that our partnership with the Utah Lake Authority has really improved since Luke became the director, and appreciate all his work.
He's a bridge builder. I put that in his evaluation. He is really a bridge builder, and we appreciate that.
Also, Chair, I'll add, in our board packet, there is a document which outlines the goals of the organization. And as I reviewed these in preparation for our meeting, it really leaves a high bar for those of us that are looking up to Luke as an example for how to run a solid committee, and applaud the goals as well as the outcomes that are articulated. And so I, for one, would speak in favor of the resolution.
Okay, so we have a motion to accept the resolution. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, great. We have a second. Any board discussion? I know in my comments, if you read them, if you had a chance, I just really emphasize, and I am such a hypocrite, but I just really emphasize balance, work-life balance more to him, and probably so I can hear myself say those words. But just, that was is just make sure, because when you have such a passion for your job as I do, and you do, Luke, it can be all consuming, and you can't help yourself because you love what you're doing and you care. But just remember work-life balance. I've seen him on the trails a couple times, so that makes me really happy. Any other board discussion? If not, we'll call it to a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And any opposed? All right, the motion carries. Thank you, Luke. We appreciate you. I don't know if you want to say anything.
Thank you. That was very awkward, but I really appreciate the vote of support. And I love this job. I love working with all of you. And Yeah, I can't think of any better place to be. Thanks.
Thank you. And I love a good public process, so don't feel awkward. We're just transparent. All right, let's move on now to item 8.2, approval of the Utah Lake Employee Handbook updates. Is someone, oh, Luke, you're going to speak to this? Great, thank you. If you'll recall our last meeting, there were some updates. We had some recommendations, so we did not adopt it. We went ahead and sent it back and asked for the updates. So we'll let Luke take it from here.
Okay. Yeah, we did a number of updates. We had some from last session that needed some additional review. And then in that process, I found a little bit more to work on. So we've got a few of these. If you can go to the next one, Anna. I have thrown up the language here. Happy to talk in detail about any of these. It was recommended during our last session in January that we form a little subcommittee. So I got together with Curtis and with Ben to work on the question of compensatory leave, overtime, exempt, non-exempt, et cetera. Under the Utah Lake Commission, there weren't really any of these distinctions. And so it was a good opportunity. Ben provides some really great resources. And what I've done is tried to pretty much mirror what FFSL does. So we broke out, we did not have any distinction between exempt and non-exempt employees. Previously, we now have exempt employees. So those of us who are exempt from FLSA, which is me and Sam, we do accrue overtime, but not at the same rate. So it's just a 1-to-1 ratio. That's what you guys do, right? So we just accrue at a 1-to-1 ratio. We dropped the number of hours of overtime that compensatory time that can be accumulated from 100 to 80 for everybody. And also my overtime and Sam's overtime lapses at the end of the year. Everything else, I made any movements I could that seemed like they were legal and in keeping with FLSA. And that's what's going on here. Happy to should we pause at each of these, or do we want to go through them all and then take questions?
I might add that we've reviewed these in a subcommittee and have approved them. It might make sense to make a recommendation to the board that the subcommittee has adopted and approved these changes. That might facilitate, maybe even expedite the process.
Sure. Thanks, Curtis.
Meaning we've gone through line item by line item on each of these items and have received the approval of those on that committee.
Thank you.
So I think we just, Luke, we just go through them.
Let's
And
just
then
go
if
through.
someone spots
Okay.
something, just speak up.
Sounds good. Anna, you want to go to the next one? Okay, maternity, paternity leave or parental leave. We have adopted this. I made one little tweak in here from what was in your packet in January when we were considering it. And that is, I make it possible for the birth parent, so the mother, to be able to move up to 2 weeks of their paid leave to prior to the actual delivery. So some people get really sick, right? Before delivery or have complications. So we've made it possible for that to be done. But otherwise, this is the same exact policy that was in the packet in January. Next. And then this is gifts and gratuities. So we just, yeah.
I have a question on that last policy, please.
Yeah.
Is there anything in here where we require that the leave is taken in chunks of time? So they have to take 2 weeks. If they have 6 weeks of paid leave, they have to take 2 weeks of it at a time within that window. So it's not, I want Friday off or Tuesday off.
No, it's
Does
not
that make sense?
structured that way. Yeah, that does make sense. It isn't structured that way. For instance, with Sam's time when he did his 2 weeks, we did kind of transitions. We actually did use it so that he had sort of a transition period where he was, I can't remember what we were doing, taking off mornings or something and working in the afternoons, or maybe the opposite. So we have left it flexible that way.
Okay, my only concern, and I'm very mindful for the required time off to support families, is at the same time off can be disruptive to the operation of the organization, and intermittent time off can be even more disruptive than a planned period of time off. So I don't know how the board feels about that, if they want to make a change to that. My recommendation would be to have in the policy where time off should be taken, at least 5 consecutive days as you work through that 6 weeks of time. I don't know how people feel about that.
Chris, we do have a line in there, and this is specific to those 2 weeks. If the mother wants to take the 2 weeks prior or up to 2 weeks prior, about just getting permission from the executive director. And I think that would be something I would be comfortable with, is we got to basically have a plan that we've agreed on as far as how this time is going to be taken. That would be my counter proposal.
If you're comfortable with managing it as a one-off, that's great. If it's not in policy, you get yourself in a situation where you did it for one, not for another. So that's what I caution. But if you're comfortable today, then that's fine.
And Chris, I'll add, we just adopted a similar policy at the county last month. And of course, I was the dissenter. I ended up voting, but I had the same concern. And what turned me from HR is FMLA allows intermittent leave, unpaid at any time. And we have no control over that. And that got me on board with not requiring it in chunks. So just to add that color.
Okay.
I think the communication is key here, because you may have one employee that it is beneficial to allow them to do half days because you need them. They're more key to the organization. So a half day helps smooth the transition. But if you've got someone hitting, and I've worked in a situation where we had someone doing that and it truly was difficult to accommodate their leave. So I don't know if there's a way to put that in there to ensure that there would be that, it's discretion, right? Of the person in charge. But
I mean, I think we could just maybe add a line at the end, detail something about this would be subject to agreement with the executive director about how the time will be utilized or something to that effect.
I feel like that's a problem with FMLA.
Yeah.
Well, that's separate. This is paid, so that's separate.
Oh, that's.
Thoughts?
I'm fine
Moving
either way.
forward.
Just my comment is, I think the more flexibility we can give to the director in allowing circumstances, as was mentioned, for one employee in their particular role, it may be beneficial to have this intermittent leave. It is FMLA standard. And so I feel comfortable leaving that with the policy as is in the hands of the director for addressing those as they arise. I think as a general rule, the more flexibility that we give to the director to manage his team, the better. So I would support the policy as written.
Okay, and I'm just kind of doing a straw poll and looking at everyone, and it looks like that's where we are at with that one, Luke.
Okay.
So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Anna, next one. Unless that's it on this one. Oh, you're right. We froze in time. Sorry. Gifts and gratuities. Sorry. Gifts and gratuities, they're bad. No, we set up a policy basically to mimic what state law and what cities, for those of you working with cities, to establish how this works. I have people who try to give me gifts and it makes me very uncomfortable. So I would be very happy to have a policy to point to that indicates this is how we operate. And then is that the last one in this section? Okay, all right, so that's this point. 8.2.
Policy procedures.
On policy and procedures, we've just made one change, and this was kind of interesting to go through. This deals with carryover. So there was a lot of speculation for a long time about what on earth Utah Lake Authority was. And part of some of the legislative debate this session actually helped us clarify that in our code, the Utah Lake Authority, our enabling legislation specifically points to this section 63E-1-102, which means that we're simply a public corporation. And the language on how budgets are handled for a public corporation is very loose. Basically, you will have a budget, is effectively what it said. So what I wanted to do was just clarify carryover policy because that is an important one. We will continue to use the budgeting that we've done to date. But I wanted to specify carryover policy. So we went and looked at, sort of benchmarked what similar entities do, special service districts, et cetera. And so basically what we've done is we've decided that we would make it so that we could carry up to 35% of the total revenue from one year to the next. And then for any encumbrances, so anytime we're saying here is an item which is going to carry over into the next fiscal year, basically just to establish that we need a form and a procedure to be able to actually carry that encumbrance over from one year to the next. So this gives us some policy and some procedure to fill in sort of the blank slate that exists in state code for us. Any questions on this? Yes, sir.
Thank you, Luke. So I'm curious, two things. One, how did you come to the 35% number? Is that a standard elsewhere? And then second, would there be any exception or clarification on large one-time grants? So for example, if we secured a grant that was given to us, but not yet contracted or encumbered according to this definition, I'd be concerned if this was, say, facilitation of a 10-year project and we have a large one-time sum that may exceed that 35% of annual operating.
Sure. Yeah. And that's a great point. I did not consider that in drafting this. The 35% comes from special service districts. But that is something, and I would say maybe we consider it as an addition, maybe for the next meeting, if we're comfortable with this. But I think that's a really good point. I hadn't really considered what if we do get, I imagine generally they would be encumbered, but you can imagine some weird situations where maybe it slipped through and then we don't know what to do with it.
Yeah. So I'm okay with the policy as is. I think it's a great framework. We may just need to revisit definitions or look to add that in the future. But thank you for putting this together.
Sure.
I think that's really smart because you want to be able to hold it, but it has to be encumbered, tied to something in order to hold. So writing a 2-sentence statement that gives you the authority to bring it to the board to protect it. Again, we can tweak this every meeting if we need to till we get it right. So yeah, I think that's a great add-on.
May I also ask a question?
Yes, please.
So Luke, can you clarify on these, any grants you'd get? Isn't it pretty typical that these are done on a reimbursement basis? I mean, I think all the grants that we administer and then any grants we get from the federal government, almost all of them are done on a reimbursement. So I don't know if we would necessarily have the problem of having to hold those funds unencumbered.
Yeah, the government grants, yes, generally. We are trying to work with philanthropic foundations to get grants from them, and that is a likely source for a bigger grant, and they will operate on their own, however they decide they do it. So it is a good point. Again, I think it's going to be a fairly rare circumstance, but one that we should probably account
Okay,
for.
thank you.
Yeah.
Any other comment?
May I ask
Okay,
just one
yes.
other?
Go
This
ahead,
is
John.
probably a stupid question, Luke, and I apologize. What's the consequence of exceeding the 35%?
Yeah.
Luke, I can speak to that if
It
you
just
want.
can't be carried over. He's got to hurry
Yeah,
and,
a slap on the wrist.
yeah.
Yes. It sounded like somebody said they could answer that. Did I
So
imagine?
it's Sam online. I was doing some
There we
reading
go.
supporting Luke and trying to develop this. The easiest part is that we actually, at the end of each fiscal year before it closes out, if we appear that we're going to surpass that 35%, we actually just transfer anything above that, or we could even go lower if we wanted to for some reason. But anything above that 35% is transferred to capital projects to be put into savings for future projects. If for some reason that did not occur, there is best practice from the local government's office of the state auditor, which basically says that in the next fiscal year, we have to correct that. So it's easy to document. It hasn't occurred yet, and if it does occur, it's quite easily corrected.
Thank you, Sam. So I think that covers it on all of the policy updates for those two items. I think we need a motion though.
Okay, those are the updates of the handbook. And like Chair Curtis Blair stated that they've already approved these, right? The committee, the subcommittee.
That's handbook, and then there's also
Recommendations.
policy and procedures, which we just did
Okay.
as well.
So you need a motion for the overall handbook or just the
I would-
policy and procedure?
I would say for both.
All right. I'll entertain a motion then to approve both of these items to go into our handbook.
I would move that we accept the policy recommendation updates as well as the handbook updates as presented.
Okay, we have a motion on the table. I'm looking for a second.
I'll second, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Any discussion, further discussion?
Just a question or clarification. Do we need to make any of the changes to give Luke the discretion on the parental leave? Or is that something we're gonna do next time?
If you want to just give me the discretion to move that, the words are in the middle of the paragraph. If I just move it to the end, then it would affect the whole policy.
I would maybe offer a substitute motion to make that change.
Okay. Great. So we need a second on the substitute motion.
I'll second.
Okay,
Is the motion just
the same motion with
state,
that.
state the substitute?
Sorry, the motion would be to pass the handbook and the policy manual as stated, with the only change being to move that Luke's discretion could be moved to the end of the policy. Does that clarify?
Yeah, the end of the parental
Yeah, I
leave
would
policy.
simply say that there's some discretion on rewording or reordering without substantive change.
Yes. Thanks, Cameron.
That's a friendly amendment. I'm totally fine with that.
Okay. All right. Any other discussion from the board members? Seeing none, we'll call it to a vote. All in favor, say aye.
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 And any opposed? All right, the motion carries. Thank you, Luke.
Yeah.
Let's go on then to item 8.3, review and approve the Utah Lake Authority Long Range Capital Plan.
Do we, or I guess Anna's on the computer. Do we have that on the slides, or do I need to pull that up on my screen? Sorry, and this is Sam online again. I'll be hitting on the long range capital plan. That would have been in the OneDrive, Anna. As she's pulling up that document board, I'll start with just explaining things a little bit more. This is a document required for any expenses that are in our capital projects plan. Very simple, basic document. It's just 2 tabs in a spreadsheet. Basically, the first tab will delineate what the name of the capital improvement project is, how much we estimate the overall expense of the project, and then a general definition of helping you understand what that is. Beautiful. Thank you for pulling that up. So this is just a PDF version showing these 2 sheets in the spreadsheet. First one, as I said, name, overall amount, what year we expect to spend it, and some notes on what the project is. And then the second sheet we can get to in a minute will just show the breakdown over a 10-year timeline of when we expect to spend those dollars. And if you'll scroll back up, so these projects, we've already hit on a few of these, but to just go down through the list, the Utah Lake State Park improvements, that's the one I mentioned during my presentation, that we're getting a boating access grant that's going to fund the vast majority, we hope, of that project for new asphalt, jetty repairs, rental slips, a storage shed, some life jacket loaner stations, etc. The next, and I'll go through this full list and obviously entertain any questions from the board at the end here. The septic pump I also mentioned, that's a much smaller project, but still coming out of our capital projects account to replace the marine septic pump at the state park. We also have the Vineyard Trail Amenities project that I mentioned is included in this. Our life jacket stations in general, we have an ongoing intent to try and install at least 1 station a year. This calendar year, we hope to install a few, so that number will be weighted a little bit in this year when we look at the next sheet. Our marina camera network are in need of some upgrades, working with the contractor on that to install some software updates. There's potential need for some additional hardware and some additional cameras that have been requested. For instance, Rick Kennington with Saratoga Springs, I've been discussing with him having another one as they complete their marina expansion. There's a desire to have a view of the parking area that will be added there. Next one, the access road improvements. This one is more broadly understanding that as we finish up the Recreation Access Plan, one of the pain points at some of the access points has been poor access conditions. And so we have budgeted in this capital range plan, long range capital plan, to do some of those over the coming years. The lakewide signage, I mentioned we're starting hopefully a planning effort this year, and starting into next year. And the next few years is when we would install all of those signs at the lake and get those purchased. And then last but not least, we do have an item on here for Utah Lake Trail construction. There are several sections of trail that are either in design phase or permitting and such, that there might potentially be a need for covering some gaps in construction. I've talked with Provo City already about the Lakeview Parkway section of trail in the next few years, as well as Timpanogos Special Service District is in design phase right now. So there might potentially be a need for those. And if you can scroll down to the 10-year timeline, this just illustrates how those are broken over the next 10 years. Obviously, you can see there's a higher amount of expenses in the next couple of years, but that would be obviously based upon grants. So I did want to comment at this point for the board that approving this document does not mean we will spend this money. It means we're allowed to spend this money for these purposes. This long-range plan will be something that will be edited every year during our budget seasons, and will be amended if needed, if we do need to amend the budget. So this is not, we have this money already and we plan to spend it. It's providing us a plan for which we can save in our capital projects account and or acquire additional funds towards these projects that we have listed. So quite heavily in the next couple of years, some improvements this year that center on some of the grant work that we're securing and hoping to do. In the next 2 years, there's some improvements based on planning projects that are occurring. And then the only long-term one that I have on here is the life jacket stations, just maintaining that system and building new stations. Any questions from the board on the long-range capital projects plan?
Sam, I'd like to, and you can send this to me later, have a better understanding of what the Utah Lake Trail construction, how we're identifying those segments and what we are trying to accomplish there. And the reason I say that is because our contribution to those, I mean, I don't want to make it sound insignificant, but trails are shockingly expensive to build. And our numbers aren't they're not that big. So I'm wondering what we're trying to do within those numbers.
Sure. No, I appreciate that. As I mentioned, this is something that's going to have to be updated. This is the first time I've written one of these capital project long range plans for us. For right now, I wanted to include this as to at least get an approval and a conversation started. I think already in our May final budget meeting, there will potentially be changes to this line item and others on here. That said, the Lake Authority is not a lead on construction on any of the trail projects, and it's not our intent to be a lead on those. So we're more intending to be a supplementary role that if there are additional unexpected costs that occur on some of the segments that are trying to be done, that we're available to step in and help with those. I know that Saratoga Springs is working with UDOT right now on the Amanda Lane Trail. I don't know if needs will arise there. As I mentioned, TSSD has one that they're hoping to pursue construction in the next couple of years. And then Provo is also working on the Lakeview Parkway Road and associated trail that hopefully the trail will be in the next 3 years from my conversation with Vern Kiesler. So for right now, I committed low amounts because we don't have a fuller understanding of what those amounts would be. But again, this enables us that if one of those projects starts encountering issues, we have a line item approved with the board in advance so that we could take advantage of that. I will say we intend, where needed, to try and help secure additional funding. So if UDOT were to have issues in Saratoga or TSSD at theirs or Provo at theirs, that we can work with Shelby as well to take this 100,000 and then potentially apply it to a grant and secure another 500,000 or $1 million or something between our funding and partner fundings in order to expand that. And those will just require amendments to the plan as we move forward. Appreciate the question, Chris. Were there any other questions?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, sorry. Didn't mean to cut you off. Thank you. Other questions or comments from the board?
Yeah, Sam, why is the nature center not on here?
That's a good question. I appreciate it, Commissioner. Luke and I, both in our budget documents and in this plan, have discussed at length what to include at this point. And if you'll remember in his email to the board, he explained this budget that I'm showing you just the plan, but Luke will cover the general fund and capital projects fund in a moment, is likely to, it could potentially change drastically by May. But we needed to have a tentative in order to be compliant with the budget, the public hearing process. So at this point, we do not currently have any funds secured or even close to securing for the Nature Center for our agency. The funding has gone to UVU, or we're preparing to secure them. So it could potentially be included in this, but we weren't certain that it was something we wanted included on this version for March. That would potentially be something we'd amend in May to add into it.
Thank you.
Anything else?
All right, it looks like you're good, Sam. What do you need from us?
So this would be an item for approval. We do have it separately as the budget, just so there's that distinction that this is not the budget. This is a plan that operates in conjunction with the budget. So the numbers for this coming year, you'll see those brought up in Luke's presentation on the capital projects fund. But we just need a motion to approve.
So it would be a motion to approve the Utah Lake Authority FY 2026 tentative budget?
No,
Is that
this
the
would be a
motion,
motion to
or-
approve the Utah Lake Authority Long Range Capital Plan.
Okay. Great. I'm looking for a motion.
I would like to make that motion, Mayor.
Okay. Thank you. John Mackey made the motion. Is there a second?
I'm happy to second that.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion about the long-range CIP plan from the board members? Okay, seeing none, we'll call it to a vote. All in favor, say aye.
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 And any opposed? Thank you, Sam. The motion carries.
Thank you, Chair.
All right, let's go ahead and move on. So this is our number 9, our public hearing for the tentative fiscal year 2026 budget.
Okay, so I'm just gonna verbally underline what Sam said, tentative. This is very tentative. And I'll tell you why. At this point last year, we were pretty firm about what we were going to be doing for fiscal year 25. However, with the restructuring we've been doing, Shelby's been here for about a month. Kelly will not actually have her first day in the office until tomorrow. And I do not want to tell them what they're going to be doing. I want to know from them how they want to approach their respective areas. So we have a general sense of where we're headed with things, but like Sam said, I'm basically giving everybody until the end of this month to get me very detailed. What do you need? What are the resources you need for next year, so that we can construct a budget that lets everybody do their job as effectively as possible. And of course, there will be trade-offs, and everybody won't get everything they want, but we need to do that with our full complement staff in place. So with that said, I'll just talk about a few things that are in here that I think are worth noting. You can see where some of the bigger increases are, and I don't think the fact that these are going to increase is going to change. So we're increasing a lot in Addie's shoreline restoration account, going up from 318,000 to 759. This is what she does all of her planting projects out of, and all of the good work that Addie does, and that we're trying to really scale up this year. So that's a big one for us. Events and programs. We got a carp hunt going that didn't exist last year. We intend to upsize the Utah Lake Festival in a number of ways. We're looking to partner with the Provo Farmers Market, so it will actually be the opening day of the farmers market in partnership with that, and also the symposium. And so those are some of the areas. And then we've got equipment that we didn't have before, the eco counters, et cetera. So some of our equipment and operations costs are going to go up. Next slide. And then I didn't really highlight much here other than just the access enhancements in the projects fund. We will have our recreation access plan in hand. Hopefully we will also get this funding from Congressman Owens in the next fiscal year's budget. So we've beefed that up a little bit. But other than that, there aren't a lot of definites that I can point to. I'm happy to answer any questions, but we're kind of in a speculative phase right now with the budget. I know, and I will add, there are some projects that are in play that we're trying to figure out. Been talking with Ben about a project that I also need to talk with Cameron about to look at a plan for how we do sustainable development around the lake, which I think is really needed to fill some gaps in other work that's been done. So there are going to be other things that we have to figure out here in the next few weeks. When we have it figured out, as soon as I have it figured out, I will send it out to you. So not just a week before, but I'll give you plenty of time to review, just knowing that we're not as far along here as we normally would be. Any questions? Okay, thank you. And then, yeah, we just need a motion to approve that.
And again, we do this as you do in all your cities and the county. The word tentative is a big deal because we adopt multiple tentative budgets till we land on our budget to where we all feel comfortable with it. So I'll entertain a motion to accept our tentative fiscal year 2026 budget.
Mayor, is that a public hearing?
Yes.
Did we do the public hearing for it? Sorry.
No, we have not. So
I move to open the public hearing.
I'll second that.
So our public hearing time is open. It follows the same standards of our natural, normal public hearing. You're allotted 2 minutes. If anyone would like to come forward and speak to our tentative budget that was just presented.
Chair, we probably need a motion just to accept our motions.
All of our emotions or motions? All right.
We did. So, Skylar did it first. I did a second to open it.
So all in favor, say aye.
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 And any opposed? Okay, the motion carries. So we're now officially opened up for public comment on the tentative budget for fiscal year 2026.
Chair, if I may, just a point of clarification, the capital improvement projects and the tentative projects funding here, how much of this, again, is contingent upon the federal earmarks of the 5 million that are still up in the air?
I mean, nothing in here that's currently in here is really dependent upon them. I'm planning around them, right? At this point, I mean, DC is in chaos, so I am working from the assumption that I'm just gonna have to raise every single dollar for everything that I need to do. Hopefully it turns out that we get some assistance, we get some grants, we get whatever else. But for now, I'm just assuming that we got to do this ourselves.
Okay, any public comment again? Anything online? All right, seeing none, we'll go ahead and close public comment.
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, let's bring it back to the board. Now we will entertain a motion to approve the tentative fiscal year 2026 budget.
I'll make that motion.
All right, we have a motion. Looking for a second. And a second. Discussion, board members?
First by Julie Fulmer.
Second, John Mackey.
He's just soft-spoken. All right, seeing no discussion from the board, we'll call it to a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And any opposed? Okay, the motion carries. Thank you, everybody. Item number 10, work session. 10.1 Utah Division of Forestry, Fire and State Lands, Utah Lake Study and Utah Lake Comprehensive Management Plan. And it looks like Dave Epstein and Jacobs Engineering is going to take this one. Welcome.
Thank you so much. Appreciate you putting us on the agenda today. My name is Dave Epstein. I'm here with a couple colleagues, Kayla Worthen and Holly Wood from our consultant team. We're working with Utah Division of Forestry, Fire and State Lands on a couple planning efforts. Many of you are aware of these. We want to make sure that you all are and are involved in these projects. So just going to take a little time to tell you a little more about them and make sure that you're aware of opportunities to be further engaged and know where to access information and resources on the project. I guess, yeah, we can start the slides, would be great. So we're going to talk about both the Utah Lake Study and the Utah Lake Comprehensive Management Plan update projects. I'm going to start with the Utah Lake Study. This project stems from Senate Bill 270 from the 2024 legislative session, and basically was given to the Division of Forestry, Fire and State Lands to complete. This is an image of our project website, utahlakesstudy.com. So I'm happy to share the link, but it's a very easy URL to remember and share. So we've got quite a bit of information here, including a virtual open house. So there's a ton of information, and without necessarily having to, have in-person meetings with, the public, which we plan to do later in the study. There's basically that opportunity to do that at anyone's own convenience from anywhere. So a lot of information there. If we could go to the next slide. So this project, again, I mentioned Senate Bill 270 from last year's legislative session. It basically charges the division to conduct a study to determine how to enhance different components of Utah Lake. And it points to 10 benefit areas. It specifies that that is to be done in a manner consistent with the division's management authority over sovereign lands. And the project is very time constrained. It's meant to be completed by November. We have to present our study to the interim session of the legislature. And I'll tell you a little more about the different components of the scope, but overall the study is aimed to help provide specific, I guess, two main deliverables. One is a review of information, kind of bringing together what all is missing to be able to inform how to enhance the lake. So we're going through a long process of reviewing information and meeting with everyone involved in managing Utah Lake and in bordering the lake. And we're discussing these 10 benefit areas that you can see on the screen, ranging from ecosystem and water clarity and quality to recreation, and the interaction with existing land uses in and around the lake. So those are the objectives. The objectives are in a sense broad in focusing on enhancement, but then specified by these 10 different benefit areas. Next slide, please. So I guess I touched on this a little. We have a project team, Jacobs Engineering. We're working with a couple sub-consultants, and then we've put together both a steering committee, largely comprised of the division directors of state agencies, to provide both technical, scientific, and legal oversight on our study. And then a planning team of, I guess, a lot of agency staff, researchers, technical experts to help, provide the right information and also, get on board with what we're looking at. This is as you're aware of, and as we've already discussed in this meeting today, there's so much being done to already try to enhance the lake. Our study is really trying to be collaborative with all that, build from it, and add to it. So yeah, again, we're in this review of information phase. The Senate bill really specifies what is the missing information, data, scientific, technical measurement, other informational needs needed to determine what the methods could be for enhancing the lake. So we are still in the middle of that, and we've again been meeting with many individuals, agencies, municipalities, and we are working on a deliverable, a report that summarizes that. And that's really sets the stage for what we do in the next phase of the study of actually developing the plan for filling those information needs. So we're kind of transitioning into that second phase. And again, we have to be done by November, and we'll be presenting, the Division of Forestry, Fire and State Lands will be presenting in November to the interim session. So as you are well aware, it's a monumental task to determine how to enhance the lake. We don't have a ton of time to do it, so we're really hoping to be as collaborative as possible with all individuals and organizations connected to the lake. Next slide, please. I mentioned the steering committee. We really want to make sure that we have support and oversight. So again, we're meeting with the steering committee. We've had one meeting of the steering committee, again, mostly comprised of state agency division directors. And we plan on working closely with them. more on the day-to-day, we're working with the planning team. And again, these folks are from different organizations, and they're kind of providing more of the technical input, a lot of that, the data information. And they will be the first, well, after the Division of Forestry, Fire and State Lands, they'll be the body that provides the first review of our deliverables before then going to the steering committee. And I mentioned our team, we have a couple sub-consultants, the Langdon Group, helping with our facilitation and stakeholder engagement, Tetra Tech, and CARP Solutions. Just to kind of show you what this looks like to meet this project timeline, we've mostly got started in the end of the year, the beginning of the year, and we're hoping to have our deliverable for the review of existing information done in April. We've been having a lot of meetings, kind of interviews with stakeholders, municipalities. We've met with a number of your municipalities, including some of the members of the board. If we haven't met with you yet, we likely have a meeting on the books to do so, get input on both technical, but also just the Senate bill and thoughts on how do we interpret this, and what's the best way to develop this study. We will have some public engagement in addition to, I mentioned we have a website active, and there's a lot of opportunity for the public to both learn about the project and also provide comment through the website. But we will have some in-person meetings in the June timeframe, and we'll just continue to work mostly with our planning team on developing the study to have a draft done in the early fall timeline, and then by November we have to be ready to present. So just want to make sure everyone's aware of that and knows where to access those resources. And Kayla's going to tell you some more about the other project we're working on for the Division of Forestry, Fire and State Lands, the Comprehensive Management Plan. I think if you can go to the next slide.
And Dave, we have like 3 more minutes.
Do we?
We have to
Okay.
end by 11, so
Okay.
we're kind of crunched on time. I know I have an
Okay.
11 o'clock, and I'm sure others might have meetings, so
Okay.
hit the high points.
We'll be quick. Yeah, you want me to do it? Okay. Okay, so if we go to next slide. So if you go to the next one, the Utah Lake Comprehensive Management Plan, the Division of Forestry, Fire and State Lands manages the sovereign lands of the state. And in Utah Lake, it's the bed of the lake below the ordinary high water mark, and now what's been negotiated as the settlement boundary. There is an existing plan, the Utah Lake Master Plan from 2009, that has served as the Comprehensive Management Plan, but the agency is to update that plan every 10 years. And so that is happening now. It's really important for you all to be aware of this. Again, we've had individual meetings with municipalities, county, but this is an opportunity to update both how not just the document that describes how the agency will manage the sovereign lands, but also how sovereign lands are classified. If we could go to the next slide. Next slide, please. Next slide. Okay. So basically, if you were to access the existing plan, there's a map of sovereign lands classifications, and those classifications determine what uses are allowed on sovereign lands. So with any interest in developing projects along the shoreline, particularly that crossover into sovereign lands, this is the opportunity to update that map and that classification that, again, will set the stage for what will be allowed or permitted on different components of the land. So we've had scoping. We're working closely with the planning team on developing the plan. We also have a project website for this project. And again, we have made our an effort to try to connect with all of the municipalities around the lakeshore individually, but really want just the message to be that the Forestry, Fire and State Lands wants to work together and to know about all plans and interest in projects along and crossing over to sovereign lands. So just cut it there, I guess. Ben.
Yes, please.
Thank you. I'll make it really quick. I just wanted to add on, we did an extensive session of public meetings, and a lot of the folks from the different cities and others came and joined and participated. We also had a survey that was open to the public and that we also sent out to members of the board and others to try to collect information. So we've really tried to get that up front, but if you felt like you haven't had a chance to engage yet, we'd still like to hear from you. We really want to make sure that when the plan is done, that any of these land use classifications are complementary, or that we've thought about what cities and others are planning to do on the shoreline of the lake. It's a really great time to be able to address that now rather than once the plan's published. And then also we are developing some other tools. We have you may have seen this really busy looking matrix on Great Salt Lake that kind of talks about the conditions of the lake and how our division can better manage during those times. We understand there's a lot of folks that do manage on Utah Lake and Great Salt Lake and these resources. So we're trying to develop something similar here where when the lake, is down low, like what are we doing differently than when it's full and above compromise? And I think there's a lot of things where we can better coordinate and work with our partners like Utah Lake Authority, the county, others to accomplish those. So we're hoping to have some new tools to be able to put into this as well.
How may a given municipality be able to become informed of the classification of our shoreline and the uses?
So the current classification is available in the master plan. There's a figure and there's a link to it in that plan, both accessible through Forestry, Fire and State Lands website and also through Utah Lake Authority's website. So basically there's only 6 classifications and it's color coded. The current plan does not have a ton of information about the different classifications and allowed uses on each. And we're working to really improve that a lot in this updated plan. But I think more important than understanding what the current classification is might just be understanding what the classification options are, and then therefore kind of informing what you're hoping to do with, or what you're aware of in terms of needs or plans for the shoreline, and to make sure those are compatible with the classification. So we're developing a new map. So it's an opportunity to inform how those classifications are made.
Mayor, I also wanted to add that when this is published, once we have a land use classification map, our first draft, we intend to be putting these onto the project website so folks can come and see that before we have a draft that's ready to, be approved. So as we develop these different pieces of the plan, again, we intend to put them out there. So we'll accept comments, and then once we get to the point of actually publishing the draft and being able to say, here it is, give us your comments, you'll have another chance to be able to say, we disagree, or we love it, or, whatever you think about the plan.
Okay, is there any further discussion? It's a lot of great information and you're deep in it. So thank you. And thanks for the timeline. That always helps with clarification. I
you.
guess basically if anyone wants to add more and has other thoughts, we can email them in, correct? Okay, great. Thanks so much,
Thank
Dave. We
you.
appreciate the update. All right, let's move on to item number 11, which is golden because we're just a couple minutes late. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I have one quick thing,
Okay,
Chair.
Skylar.
We are in the thick of preparing a bid to host the North American Lake Management Society Conference.
Fun.
Yeah, it was a crazy idea, and I ran with it. So Explore Utah Valley and the convention center are in the middle of preparing that. So I may have a resolution to support hosting that conference on next meeting. So if you see that, there's the heads up.
We'll kind of know what it's all about.
Yes.
That's exciting. And we love that. Bring them to Provo to our
Yeah,
convention
500
center.
people,
Let's
800
go.
hotel nights.
All day, every
It'll
day,
be
and
good.
eat all our food and get in a car wreck and have to pay a fine and then come back to face it in court, sleep over again, eat some more food in Provo. I mean, I'm all about the tax base. All right, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Oh, I'll second it.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, great. The motion carries. Thanks, everyone. And I've just got to run off. I already saw my 11 o'clock walk in about 15 minutes ago.